Buckell. Tell us a bit about yourself.
I grew up in Grenada,
Right.
and the U.S. and British Virgin Islands. I live in Ohio now, up in the States, but I write Caribbean science fiction and fantasy. Or I'm an author who is from the Caribbean who writes science fiction and fantasy, however you want to say that. And I've written a book for the Halo universe, the video game.
Right.
And just keeping on writing.
So how old were you when you left the Caribbean to go to the States?
I was 15 or 16 when Hurricane Marilyn came through. There was like 3 hurricanes that came through the Virgin Islands, one right after the other, and we lived on a boat and lost the boat to the hurricane. And my stepdad was from Akron, Ohio, so he moved us up there, and that's how I ended up living in Ohio.
Living on a boat. Interesting. How was living on a boat?
Living on a boat, yeah. You've seen the people who live on boats off the harbors. That was me.
Okay, so there was a norm there.
Yeah. There are people who live on boats around the Caribbean, and some of them go up and down the Caribbean. But one side of my family has always lived on boats, and they came from England and have lived on boats for 3 generations. And then my father is Grenadian, up from the north end of the island in Carriacou. So he and my mom met, and but we lived on a boat off and on in the Caribbean, in all parts of the Caribbean. And so that's part of my background.
Okay, so before leaving Grenada, you said you left at 15, Caribbean at 15. Did you want to be an author then? Did you know you want to be an author then?
I knew I wanted to be an author somewhere around 14 or 15. That's when I started getting real serious. I loved the books when I was growing up, when I was 6 or 7 in Grenada. You know the book exchanges some people have where you take a book, leave a book
Right.
in some places, right? So I found a book called Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, and it blew my mind apart, and it's never been the same since. I loved it. His science fiction was big ideas, big what ifs, big scene settings, just everything was so inventive, and I just read those books up whenever I could find them. And so in St. Tom, by the time I got to the British Virgin Islands and was living there, I knew that I wanted to be a writer. That's what I wanted to be when I was, out of school. So I've been, since I was 15, submitting short stories to magazines and anthologies, and have published almost 50 short stories in various places, and 5 or 6 books.
Okay, so how often, because as you would know, Attitude is a youth-oriented magazine.
Mm-hmm.
So how much hard work do you have to put in to get that amount of work published?
That represents, I'm 32 now, and I started when I was 15, so that 50 stories and 5 or 6 books is 15 years of my life, right? I published my first short story when I was 18 or 19, because I started working when I was 15. So 3 or 4 years of work of writing short stories. And I don't know how good I was when I started. I had a lot to learn. I'm also dyslexic, so I have a hard time with all sorts of the mechanics. So it took me a lot of hard work to get good on just all the levels of writing. I was always very creative, but to become a great writer, you just have to master everything on a small level. And so I had a lot of struggles with that. Not a lot of teachers said, when they looked at my writing, it was like, oh, he's going to become a writer. They just, said, he has trouble spelling and all sorts of other stuff. But I was really persistent, always working at it. And sacrificed a lot of my spare time to just practice writing all the time.
Okay, so honestly,
yes.
For your opinion, honestly, it's a secret between us. I don't know if YouTube will tell, but do you get tired?
Get tired?
Yeah.
Of writing? I get frustrated sometimes with writing when I have deadlines and I have to do something by a certain date, and I have to push it. Because sometimes creativity doesn't want to respond to that, and so you start to wonder if what you're doing is the best possible writing, or when I have no deadlines, if something starts to not work, I go work on something else, so I'm always working, but I don't have to work on the same thing all the time. When I'm on a deadline, there's just no 2 ways around it. I have to work on the one thing that I have to, and sometimes then it feels like work, and you start to get a little frustrated. But then you think of all the other people who have to work like that every day, and you think, well, I can't complain about it. I get to do what I love, and I'm doing what I love, and so then I don't get tired of it. Even when I'm getting tired of it, I just remind myself that I'm living the dream, and it's all good.
Okay, so 15 then, we're going from 15 up to when you got your first book, my first short story published. What was the process?
To get a book or short story?
The book published.
The book published. Well, I published some short stories, and so as a result, I got some attention and nominated for some awards. And so I met my agent at like a conference, sort of like this, right? But in the States. I went and went to the awards parties and stuff like that, and met him. And as a result, he asked me to send him a book I was working on. I'd only had a few chapters so far. And I sent it to him, and he said, if you finish this book, I would represent it and take you on as a client. So I went back and spent the next year and a half working on finishing up the book and then sending it to him. And then he had some more questions and things that he wanted fixed in the book, so I did those things for him. And then we took it out, and he showed it to all these different publishers in New York. And a couple of them came back with offers for the book. Then it got into the whole publishing game.
What was the name of this book?
The first book was Crystal Rain.
Okay, this is the book of the trilogy of Slave Mongoose.
Yeah. Crystal Rain, Ragamuffin.
That's about those kids. When I saw the name Slave Mongoose, I'm like, that Caribbean? So tell us about that.
There's a series of books based on a future where aliens have kind of dominated all of mankind. And on one world that has cut itself off away from everybody, it's settled by a bunch of Caribbean people, and they slowly have to fight off, the bad aliens and help all of humanity sort of rise up against them and grab its freedom. And that's what the sequence of the 3 books is about, basically.
Right, so that's about being chosen as to write basic commission to write the Halo book.
That was a big deal, yeah. Well, my publisher also produces the books for the Halo people,
right.
And when they needed a new writer, the people from Bungie said, send us a bunch of your authors, and we'll pick the one that we like the most. And so they sent them over a bunch of books, and they came back and they said that the guy who did Crystal Rain was interesting, can we meet him? So I got to fly out to Seattle, meet the creators of the video game. And now, honestly, I'm a huge fan of the video game to begin with, right? So when they asked me if I minded having my books put in the pile, I was like, yes, cross my fingers, And so when I went out to Seattle, I got to meet the people who made the video game. And, once they realized that I had played it, and I knew all about it, and I wasn't just there to try and make some money writing for them, but that I was passionate about it, we had a lot of fun talking about ideas for a book. And it turns out we all like the same writers, and so it was just a huge, we were all enjoying talking to each other. And so we came up with some ideas for the book right there and then, and they decided to go ahead and use me to write that book. And it was really interesting because that book has been everywhere. It was number 4 on the New York Times bestseller list, and so many people have read it. It's amazing.
Okay, tell us about Tobias, not the author.
All right.
What you do in your home, there's no book.
There's no book?
There's no book. No books to write.
I'm going to sound boring, it's a hard adjustment to move from the Caribbean to the States because there's all my hobbies and activities are gone. I live in a landlocked area, so there's no jet skiing, no waterboarding, no going for a swim. All the things that make up what I do are gone. So play video games a lot. I love to read, obviously, because I'm a writer. So a lot of my downtime is flipping through books. Now that writing is my full-time career, I used to have a job, so I used to work at writing like it was a job, like having a normal job. But now that I'm writing full-time, I've been, catching up with some movies and watching some TV that I never had time to catch up on. And I just became a father recently, so I've got two twin girls. The twin girls keep me real busy. One of the things that's nice about being a writer is I keep my own schedule, so I get to spend as much time with them as I can get,
So what type of movies do you watch?
It ranges all over the place. Of course, I like my science fiction. I love catching some of the anime, and also really enjoy suspense, spy thrillers, that sort of thing. Born Identity, Taken, things like that. Action. You know, the bigger you can explode something on the screen, the more likely I am to be there.
Who's your favorite artist band?
Band?
Yeah.
You know, I listen to a lot of weird remix stuff. You know, I get you know the app called Pandora. You know, it basically you plug one song in that you like, and then it plays with a lot of other stuff that's similar. So I found some artists that were taking some 70s Ethiopian funk and remixing it. That's actually what I listen to the most these days. It makes for some interesting background music. But you know, I grew up in Grenada, so it's like, you know, sometimes you put on the soca. When I moved up to the Virgin Islands, it's not as big there. You can't find soca on the radio stations, so that was sad. Now that I have the internet up in the States, I actually can listen to more music from down here than before. And I love roots rock. I mean, it makes me like an old fuddy-duddy to some people, but back when dancehall was big, I was still listening to roots rock. I love roots rock. You know, give me some of the original rhythms, and that's my style. But then I listen to anything. You know.
Okay, so just a curious question: what soca songs stick so in your head? Without that, you just tell me some song that come to your head quickly.
You know, put me on the spot.
Yeah, you know, like
yeah. That's all right. You know, I mean, I'd be like real old school Mighty Sparrow. You know, because Grenada, you gotta represent.
Right. Okay, so this question, this is one song. It's not really a question. It's one song really cliche.
All right.
What advice do you have for the young attitude readers? You guys are going to come on your web and watch this interview. What advice do you have for them when they want to be an author, musician, banker, whatever? What advice do you have for them?
You know what? You find something you're passionate about and throw yourself at it, and the younger you start, the further ahead you are than anyone else. There's this guy named Malcolm Gladwell. Actually, he's sort of a second-generation Caribbean expat, right? Living up in Canada. I think he's in Canada. He's written a couple of books, and one of them is about the principle of 10,000 hours of practice. Like everyone who's an expert, a master of something, like really good, has put in 10,000 hours of practice, right? So like a surgeon, you know, someone who's like a brain surgeon, it takes them 10,000 hours to go through all the different parts of school and all the practice and the residency. If you add it all up, it's like 10,000 hours. And if you look at someone who's like a first string, like master, like violinist, then usually there's about 10,000 hours of practice before they get to that. And if they're like second string or further back, then it's like 7,000 hours of practice over a lifetime. So it's like the more hours of practice you put into what it is you want to do and be an expert or master at, the further ahead you are of everyone else. Get started young, because I got started when I was 15, and so in my mid-20s I became a full-time writer, which is my life's passion. And most of the people I talk to who are becoming full-time writers or who are selling their first books are in their early to mid-30s, because it's taken them so long to master becoming writers. And because I started at 15, I'm usually one of the younger people that people are running to make a living becoming, you know, being a writer. So starting young.
Okay, so there you guys have it from Tobias Buckell, author. So thank you for tuning in to Attitude TV.